It wasn't a standard operation, it wasn't even on paper. No briefing room, no uniforms, no formal chain of command. The 12 soldiers selected for Operation Harrowgate weren't average operators. They were ghosts, men who didn't officially exist. Plucked from deep cover ops, psychiatric wards, disavowed units, and black sites. Each one had killed without orders and survived missions where entire battalions had perished. They didn't know each other, they weren't allowed to, but they all received the same message: recover the object, burn the site, leave no trace. And every single one of them, except Sergeant Elias Monroe, disappeared without a whisper. The year was 1983, during the peak of Cold War paranoia, but the threat wasn't Russian, not directly. An American satellite had picked up an electromagnetic anomaly pulsing from a no-man's land on the Afghan-Soviet border. Not just any signal, a rhythmic wave of low-frequency sound, repeating in coded intervals and disrupting nearby electronics. Recon satellites glitched out. A U-2 spy plane went blind over the region for 11 seconds, and a Soviet forward base just 14 miles from the coordinates went radio silent, then radio dead. When Russian scouts arrived, they found the base intact, weapons untouched, but every single soldier had vanished. Their tents still zipped, meals still warm, boots still laced, like they'd all simply walked off into the mountains and dissolved into thin air. Washington took notice. Black budget funding was pushed through a front company. A contractor team was activated and flown in under the cover of a humanitarian aid mission. The squad hiked into the foothills of the Hindu Kush Mountains under full radio silence. From that point on, no one knows exactly what happened, except for Monroe. And his version is so twisted, so otherworldly, it was immediately discredited, until pieces of it started surfacing years later in other accidents and other cover-ups. According to Monroe's journal, they reached the site on the third day, a massive stone fracture half buried in the side of a mountain, exposed by a recent landslide. It wasn't a cave. It wasn't a ruin. It was too perfect. Straight angles, polished walls, a black spiral etched into the entrance that seemed to shift in the torchlight. The walls were lined with metallic inlays that absorbed light. Not reflected, absorbed. They called it the mouth. As they descended, gear began to fail. First the radios, then the compasses, then the watches. All of them froze at 3 a.m. Even the night vision goggles started to malfunction. Not from darkness, but from interference. Like something was pulsing below them. The deeper they went, the more time lost meaning. One operator, Huxley, wandered off for 2 minutes. When he returned, his hair had turned completely white, and he had aged at least a decade. His mouth was filled with black fluid and his eyes rolled back. He died choking on his own scream. They burned his body in silence and moved forward. By day 5, Monroe reported mental instability across the team. One man tried to stab his own reflection in the black metal walls. Another began speaking in multiple voices, none of them his. A lieutenant woke up every night repeating the same phrase: "It was never ours. We were never meant to find it." And still, they went deeper. They found the object on day 7. It was a sphere, 10 feet wide, floating, 2 feet off the ground, inside a stone chamber with no visible door, no ventilation, no source of power. It emitted no heat, but everyone who approached it began to sweat profusely. One soldier vomited and passed out. Another had a seizure. Monroe wrote that he saw shadows inside the sphere, moving, not reflections. One man put his hand near it. The skin peeled off like it had been microwaved. Another screamed that he could hear it whispering his name in his father's voice, though his father had been dead for 20 years. Then the sphere pulsed once, just once, and everything fell apart. The walls began to vibrate. The lights flickered. The ground seemed to twist like liquid, swallowing 2 men whole. Hit that subscribe button. Because if Monroe was telling the truth, then it wasn't a suicide mission,